Beltone Hearing Aid Center presents The Drive.
Ready?
The Drive.
Elmore deep, left side three, it's good! From 30 feet, John Elmore!
The Drive with Paul Swann.
Welcome into the Tuesday, October 30th edition. The Drive begins now here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. We've got player audio today. We've got Doc Holliday. Today's Tuesday. That means it's Doc Holliday Day. Get a chance to catch up with the head coach of the Thundering Herd. We'll do so here in a little bit. Get his thoughts on the upcoming game with Southern Miss. And I'm sure you realize this, and Doc's aware of it as well. This is the game in which Marshall has played the same opponent, I believe, every year since in conference. You've seen Southern Miss the most. It makes sense. I think Conference USA has done something right here, scheduling these two teams every year just because Southern Miss, Marshall have a great name compared to the other teams in the conference, and you're going to hear Doc Holliday talk about that a little bit more as far as in Conference USA, where's the prestige? Southern Miss, Marshall's there as well. So it's a good game. Doc's going to talk about that here in a little bit. We'll hear from him also. Ryan B. got a chance to catch up with him earlier today. Hopefully we'll hear more from Ryan throughout the next few weeks. But it was good talking to him today. We're going to hear a little bit of what he said. And then I didn't get a chance to get into it yesterday, but we get a few things from Jordon Dowrey. We're going to hear from him. And Jordon's always a great interview. You talk to a guy like Jordon, and outside of just scratching the plays on a napkin and letting you see what's going on, he'll tell you everything. He'll give you some pretty good details. So Jordon's coming up, and if we've got time, we didn't get a chance to get into it yesterday because we want to get into a little bit more basketball, but Artis Johnson, we're going to hear from him, get his thoughts on how the week went, and go from there with him. So that's what we've got. And, of course, your phone calls at 877-420-TALK, 877-420-8255. Really, it's a busy week because we've got football. That's on Saturday. We've got Marshall Exhibition basketball. That's coming up on Thursday. So you've got an opportunity, of course, to see what the Herd looks like again. Then they hit the road. That's a short hop. They're going to take on Eastern Kentucky. I like that. EKU, they should play that more. I really do enjoy that series. Getting a chance to play some of the closer teams geographically makes sense schedule-wise. It's a game you can get to. We talked about that on Monday. It's really a good game. I like it. I wish Marshall can do more of that scheduling-wise. So that's what we've got in store for you. And, of course, we have got coming up tonight Cavaliers basketball. Want to remind you of that. So we're starting back up there. World Series kind of prevented us from carrying the Cavs for the first few days, and now we're going to get into that. So we'll have basketball coming back for you, and I'm looking forward to seeing if the Cavaliers can pull it together. A lot of turmoil right now. Cleveland looking for coaches, Cavaliers, the Browns. No problem with the Indians. Cincinnati is the other story. The baseball team's got problems. Football team, they won. They got the off week. Now, maybe in the next couple of weeks they can get healthy, make a good run for the second half of the season. But now they're on the bye week. Coming up, they'll have New Orleans. Then they're going to be at Baltimore. I'm sure Baltimore's wanting another shot at the Bengals. Then here's how the schedule breaks down. It's kind of condensed as far as you got Cleveland and Denver, and then you're taking on the Chargers. Then you take on Oakland. Chargers are on the road. Oakland's at home. Denver's going to be a home game as well. The first Cleveland matchup's a home game. New Orleans at home. Baltimore, that's a road game. And then after the Oakland game, that's the final regular season home game. You're on the road at Cleveland and at Pittsburgh. Hey, no favors there, right? NFL's not doing you any favors there. At Cleveland and at Pittsburgh. Thankfully, this is the NFL. Travel's not an issue. Cleveland's not that far, not that hard to get to. Pittsburgh's not that hard to get to. So travel's not that much of an issue, but still. last year on the road, wrapping it up against Oakland at home. Before that, you got a road trip against the Chargers. But they're on the bye week trying to get better. And that's what we're going to talk about with Marshall players when we come back. And with Doc Holliday, of course. Thundering Herd's been on the bye week. Now, they've got 4 straight to get ready for. Hopefully 5 if they can play this out right. Got to get past Southern Miss first, and then Charlotte, and then UTSA, and then FIU. I know it's premature, but I'm liking Marshall's chances. After the bye week, I thought what they did to FAU was a lot better than I expected. It was a nice bounce back. They seem to have gotten over MTSU a little bit. They're healthier now. They're going to play a Southern Miss team, which I think is really beatable for them, even though it's going to be a defensive battle, and we're going to talk about that with Doc in a few minutes. Charlotte, I'm not going to say that's going to be an easy one. I'm not going to go there just yet. When we get to that week, we'll talk about that. But I still like the Herd's chances here. For the rest of the way, I like the Herd's chances. But this is the next to last road trip. Then you've got Charlotte and UTSA. Both of those going to be home games. And then on the road against FIU. And then you figure out where you're going to be next. Are you going to possibly be in the East Division championship hunt by that time you get to FIU? And then if you win that, you're going to play for the conference championship. Will that be a home game? You don't know yet. Or is there a possibility that, all right, you're not playing the championship game and South Carolina needs a 12th game? Does the Thundering Herd get that extra paycheck? Hey, come on down. You're not playing. We're not playing that week. We need an extra game. Here's a little bit more money to make it worth your while. Okay. You never know. I'm not going to say that's going to happen, but the best way to get to that extra game is just win the East Division. And Thunder Herd is going to try to do that. But we're looking at Southern Miss when we come back from break. So we'll hear from Doc Holliday first and foremost, and then Ryan B. a little bit later on, Jordon Dowrey. We're going to hear from him. We got Artis Johnson on deck and your phone calls. When we continue with this edition of The Drive, we are presented by Beltone Hearing Aid Center on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Now, back to The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
We're presented by Beltone Hearing Aid Center here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. Welcome back to this edition. Tuesday, October 30th. As Tuesday comes, that means Doc Holliday time. Doc's had a little time to get ready for Southern Miss. Had the off week, so a little extra time to work on this team, work on the game plan. Off weeks are good sometimes. In years past, you've had off weeks, weird times early on. This one comes just about right. You've got 4 games to go. Marshall gets an off week, gets a chance to heal up a little bit and get ready for that final push. And Doc Holliday is no stranger to Southern Miss. But before we get into that, let's hear what Doc Holliday had to say as far as his opening statement, naming of the captains, and just as a general impressions of the game ahead.
Captains this week on offense will be Levi Brown and Jordon Dowrey. On defense, we've got Malik Gant and Malik Thompson. Malik Thompson is just a guy that continues to have a tremendous senior year. Proud of the way he's gone about his business, and he's a really good player for us right now. As you all know, we've got a great challenge going to Southern Miss. You guys have all been there. They got great traditions. It's a great thing about that Southern Miss team is they're probably, if not one of the most talented teams in our league. They're like the top 1 or 2 in our league in total offense. They're top 1 or 2 in our league in total defense, and you don't have those stats out there if you don't have good players. So they've got excellent players. They got a quarterback that's thrown for a bunch of yards. They got a defense that's been very stingy in the red zone, and stat-wise, they're one of the top defenses, if not the top defense in our league. So anytime you go on the road, you got to take, of course, your toughness and your leadership. These 4 guys I mentioned will have to do that along with the rest of our players. So we got to have a great week of preparation. We get kind of a day ahead of things. We had a Tuesday practice last night. So today's Wednesday, and have 2 Thursdays, and then get ready to go play. So I know we're excited. Our players are excited, and looking forward to the challenge.
Okay, short week, we usually have doc time. Long week, with the off week, we've got doc time again. No, today's Tuesday. Don't listen to him. Today is Tuesday. It's his Wednesday, and then Thursday is going to be his Thursday, and then Friday's going to be no, we're not going there. But it's good to hear that they're ahead of schedule and getting ready for Southern Miss. And just to get Doc's thoughts on playing Southern Miss, this is a team that Marshall has seen a lot. They play every year. Of everyone who's on the schedule, Southern Miss and Marshall seem to get paired up every year in football, which I think is a good thing. It also makes this series a little bit more exciting because there's some history building between these two programs. And just wanted to get Doc's thoughts about playing this series, the rivalry aspect, the fact that, it's a familiar game. It's a big game with these two schools.
The one team I know that since I've been here, we've played every year I've been here. So, been there multiple times. That team, again, probably, as far as tradition in our league, I mean, you would think of us and them as probably having more tradition and more history than probably anybody in our league as far as football is concerned. So, that's an excellent team, as I mentioned before, and Jay's done a nice job down there. So it'll be a great challenge for us that our players looking forward to.
Okay, let's get into the X's and O's of this thing. Southern Miss, their record not as good as you would like if you're Southern Miss. They're sitting at 2-2 in conference, but they're 3-4 overall, and they are not that bad of a team. The record might not indicate truly how good this team is, and that was a question of Doc. Is this team better than that 3-4 record?
Well, they are. I mean, like I say, if you look at, of course, stats don't mean a whole lot at times, but if you look at them statistically, you don't put up the numbers they've put up on both sides of the ball if they don't have good players on offense and defense. And the other thing about, you guys have followed Southern Miss through the years, clear back in the days when they were beating Alabamas and all those people they were beating. They're located in probably one of the most talent-rich, places in the country that's got the best. They got junior college football in the state of Mississippi may be the best there is, and they've got a lot of good high school players in that area, so they should be talented. I mean, and if they do a good job recruiting, which I'm sure Jay does, they've got good players at every position. So as I mentioned before, they are a talented team that turnovers have been a problem for them. And that's the reason they've lost a couple games there. So if they get that corrected, they're going to be a handful. So it's like I say, it's going to be all about us going down there and playing really well in all three phases and continue what we've done the last couple games.
Doc mentioned turnovers. That was a question asked to Doc. How important is it just taking care of the ball against Southern Miss?
Game you go into, you number one, you got to play great defense. That's where it starts. And you hear me say it all the time. The last couple of weeks we've played great defense. We've taken away the strength of that particular team, whether it be the vertical throws against Old Dominion and the run game against FAU. And then the thing offensively we talk about is taking care of the ball. We've done that, and then we've won the special team battles. So I think every game you play comes down to doing those things. And if you can do that, then you got a great shot at winning the game, and that'll be no different Saturday.
Thundering Herd. So the Thundering Herd trying to hang on to the ball and not turn it over. They're pretty good about that the last few weeks. Now, one thing that we're going to talk about, at least for a couple of days, is the fact that the off week. Marshall having the off week, getting ready for Southern Miss and the rest of the season. And one question that was asked to Doc was just, could you talk about how beneficial it was just to have that week off?
I don't think there's any question, that we got a lot of guys that are back now. I don't foresee anybody not playing Saturday at this point. But if we'd had a game this past Saturday, there'd been 3 or 4 guys that wouldn't have played in that game. So I don't think there's any question that open date helped us a lot as far as getting guys back and healthy. And that's a 4-game stretch now. You're in a 4-game stretch that every game's a championship game at this point. So you got to go get ready to go play them all, starting with, of course, Southern Miss.
Every game's a championship game now, and you've got a team that a little bit better prepared, a little better rested after the off week. And one guy I think that's going to help is the quarterback, Alex Thompson. We talked to him yesterday. Doc was asked about how this off week really benefited Alex in his game, trying to get things right, connect with his wide receivers. Here's Doc's response to that.
I think he's grown as a player and got more comfortable every game he's played. I think as you as well as I have, I think I saw improvement from game 1 to game 2 to game 3, and I expect the same kind of improvement going into game 4 because he's a competitive guy that works extremely hard at what he does. Threw the ball extremely well last night, I thought, in practice, and see him getting better every week. So he's going to have to continue to do that this week.
Now, with the players getting that extra time, you're getting some guys back. You heard Doc mention a moment ago that if they would have played a game last week, there would have been several guys that wouldn't have been on the field. Now, you don't have that much as an issue now with the off week, and you start looking towards Isaiah Green. What's his status? Where is he going to fit into this? And that was a question asked to Doc. Hey, how's Isaiah doing? How's he going to fit into the mix now that he's getting back into a spot where he can play if needed? Here's Doc's response to that.
Well, he's back out there. He's back out in practice, and he's throwing the ball around a little bit. We'll see. But Alex right now is our quarterback, and we'll move forward in that direction.
So you heard it there from Doc. Alex is the quarterback. Isaiah is going to be out there available if needed, but Alex is the quarterback. And I think that probably works the best if Alex stays healthy. I think you go with Alex right now. Now, one aspect of Marshall's game that I think has really improved over the last few weeks is the run game. And that's going to be important. Running has definitely opened up the passing attack a lot more, given Marshall a few more options. And so the question to Doc was asked, how important is the run game going to be for this game?
It's always critical, and what you've got to be able to do, regardless of who you're playing, is take advantage of what they give you. And I think the last couple of weeks we've done that. We've been able to run the football at times and gotten that game in the fourth quarter in both those particular games and had the ability to run the football and put it away, which was critical on our part. So having the ability to run it and we got to throw it a little better, which I think we will, then we should be fine.
And finally, from Doc, a lot of them made of the Southern Miss defense. We're going to hear a little bit more about that defense later on from some of the guys. But the defense has been pretty good for Southern Miss. Marshall's defense has been pretty good as of late as well. So you're going to see two of the better defenses in Conference USA. This isn't going to be an offensive fireworks showdown. This is going to be which defense breaks or which defense bends. Because honestly, this is going to be a low-scoring affair, I think, if the defenses both show up. So Doc was asked about just the style of game that we're going to see playing that Southern Miss defense.
They play tremendous defense. If you look at stat-wise, they're one of the top defenses in our league, and we take great pride in what we do here defensively. So, I'm sure both defenses will play extremely well, and offenses. We work really hard taking care of the football and take advantage of what they give us. So it's going to be a battle. We know that's going to be a physical game. It always is. Anytime we play Southern Miss, it's an extremely physical game, and it won't be any different on Saturday.
So that's Doc Holliday from earlier this afternoon. When we come back, we're going to hear a little bit from Ryan B. also. We've got Jordon Dowrey on the way. If we've got time, we'll hear a little bit from Artis Johnson. We might get that in next as well. So we've got more. Stick around. It's The Drive. It's presented by Beltone Hearing Aid Center on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Don't worry. Paul Swann has the wheel on The Drive, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Welcome to the second half of the show. I'm your host, Paul Swann. Today we are presented by Beltone Hearing Aid Center on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. Still to come, we're going to hear from Jordon Dowrey, and if we have time, we're going to hear from Artis Johnson. But we got Ryan B. Get a chance to talk to him today, and I'm not going to play everything. I might save a couple of bites for next few days, but I want to get to really the important stuff today, just talking about the game. And wanted to get his thoughts on just getting ready for playing Southern Miss after the off week, and here's what he had to say.
Yeah, we're excited to go down there. They're a solid team. They got a lot of their O-line back, not all of them, but we're just ready for the next challenge. We had this bye week it's good to kind of rest up a little bit, but we're anxious to get back out there playing.
So, kind of curious, what do you do on the bye week? What do you do? What does the team do? And they've already had sort of a forced bye week of sorts, but now this was a planned bye week. Just want to get his thoughts on, what do you do? What's different here about this bye week?
I mean, we got in the film room more. We try to stay locked in. I think a lot of guys, when a bye week comes, I think it's just it's an off week. Just kind of take your foot off the gas. Well, we tried to avoid that as much as we could, and just stayed locked in and kept preparing for Southern Miss.
Speaking of Southern Miss, Ryan's seen Southern Miss. He knows what they're all about. Just want to kind of get his thoughts on what's different about this team this year.
Well, they don't have Ito Smith. He's a big threat last year, so we're glad he's not in the backfield this year. But they got some younger running backs that have came in and stepped up and made plays. So they're guys we're gonna have to rally around.
Ito Smith in that game last year rushed for 150 yards and a touchdown. That was, at the time, his third consecutive game with at least 150 yards rushing. Marshall fought valiantly in that game, but lost 28-27. Southern Miss and Marshall, the all-time series is in Southern Miss's favor, and it was 6-all until the win last year. So now Southern Miss leads the series 7-6. That's how many times they've played. That's how close this has been. These two teams have gone back and forth over the years. So they know each other. They know each other well. It's a good series. I'm glad they're still playing it. Now, one question that was asked to Ryan was the turnovers. And, of course, turnovers have been important for Marshall over the last few weeks. And so the question asked to Ryan basically was, how are you guys getting to that point? Is that something you guys are mentally preparing yourself for? What is it that's going on there that's making you guys pretty effective? And here's what Ryan had to say about that.
Down in our meeting rooms, we have a big board that says mission takeaway. And anybody that gets to take a strip, an interception, whatever, they get their picture up there. And so it's one of our main goals on defense this year is to create turnovers. And so obviously, we practice it about every day. We have a takeaway circuit, and it's a big thing for our defense.
So you do the takeover of the board if you get a takeaway. You get your face plastered up there. I kind of like to get a glimpse of that thing to see what it looks like. But that's a big deal. These guys are serious about that. So that's Ryan B. We're going to hear a little bit more from him hopefully the rest of the week. I'll tell you what. We've got some more to get into. So we've got Artis Johnson. I want to get into that when we come back. I also want to hear a little bit from Jordon Dowrey, so we've got that to talk about. And we'll take your phone calls, 877-420-TALK, 877-420-8255. So we're going to make a little bit of time for that. So when we come back, we'll hear from Jordon Dowrey, we'll hear from Artis, and then we'll wrap up the show rest of the way with your phone calls and taking a look at what's coming up for the rest of the week when we continue with this edition of The Drive presented by Beltone Hearing Aid Center on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Presented by Beltone Hearing Aid Center. I'm your host, Paul Swann. This is The Drive on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. Still to come, we've got Artis Johnson. Going to hear from him. But we've got Jordon Dowrey. And Jordan's always fun to talk to. He will almost give you the playbook. Almost. He's smart enough not to do that, but if you really want to get into some detail with him, sort of know what's going on, he's going to give it to you. And so let's hear a little bit from him. First up, Jordon, big boy. I mean, big cuddly teddy bear until you get him on the football field. I actually enjoyed having the time off. And so one of the questions asked to him was just, how'd you use that time off getting ready for the upcoming game? And, of course, you got the off week, so how'd you use the time off?
Well, I think the when you have extra time to prepare, you start a lot earlier than you would normally. But overall, we usually get it done in a week, and so anything extra is just bonus. That's sort of how we look at it. So starting on a Monday, we already know a ton more about our opponent than we ever would on a Monday. So that part of it's big, but probably the biggest part of it is getting our bodies back, getting healthy, spending a lot of time in the training room and those sorts of things. But I think the team's done a really good job with that this week.
Now, with Jordon, he's been around a while. And if you ask anybody about going down to Hattiesburg, playing at Southern Miss, so if you ask Bill Cornwell, he's going to tell you about the area, the hospitality, the barbecue, the ribs, things like that, fan experience. It's a pretty cool place to go. If you ask Jordan Dowrey about, hey, what's it like going down there? You're playing at the Rock, you're playing at Southern Miss. Here's what he says.
Yeah, it's a unique stadium. It's very compact. It's kind of how I feel. Like everything's right there on top of you, and everyone's right there. So that, I think, is one of the biggest things that makes it a unique stadium to play in. And your locker room's right underneath right in the stands. Basically, you're underneath in a storage room. But that's all just where you sit when you're getting dressed. It doesn't make a huge difference for the game, but it is a unique environment to play at.
Welcome to Conference USA football, Jordan. You know what it's like going in down there. So let's talk about the defense. He's going to have to look at that defense all game. And so he can tell you probably better than anyone what makes that Southern defense good. What makes that Southern Miss defense so good?
Well, they do some things that are – they do a lot of different things. They go from odd – they run odd in a couple different ways. They also play 4 down. And so if you're not locked in on who you're IDing, who you're blocking, and all those sorts of things, on any play, it could ruin the play, but it gets a lot more difficult when you have a defense that plays so many different things. So that's where the preparation comes in. And if we do everything during the week and building off the preparation we had last week, I think all of that together, we should be able to go into this game knowing our assignments, knowing who we block, and being able to play fast because we're confident in what we know.
That's a good point. They're playing a defense that's not vanilla. They're going to throw some things at you. They're going to do some things. And with the off week, that's going to help the Thundering Herd get ready. You would have thought that would have helped FAU in getting ready for the Thundering Herd, but that didn't seem to do anything for them. Marshall's got to make sure that they're making the best use of the time given to them, not just getting this team ready, but making sure you know how to attack that defense. And so that was a question asked of Jordon. Just, with the bye week, does it help with playing such a complicated defense coming off that bye week, having that extra time?
Well, that definitely helps. The other thing is it's nice that we're facing a more complicated defense later on in the season, because we've already played teams that do a lot of similar things. We haven't played teams that do all of the things that they do, but we've played teams that go odd. We've played teams that have 4 down. So we've seen a lot of these variations. We just haven't seen them all in the same week. So this being later in the season means it's not the first time we're going to see the same kind of looks, and that definitely helps. Complicated defenses early in the season are a little bit more challenging, and so having a little bit of experience under our belt from this season definitely helps too.
And finally, from Jordon, question was asked of him with the off week, with the extra time, what was the major point of emphasis for the offense? And I tell you, again, you ask Jordon, he's not going to give you the playbook, but you're going to get a pretty good idea of what's going on, the mechanics, everything involving this offense. So the question was, what's the major point of emphasis for the offense in the off week? Here's Jordon's reply.
Well, it was a lot of going back to the basics. We had a lot of time where we were just focusing on our plays. It wasn't even looking at we just put a defense out there. It wasn't a Southern Miss defense. It was just here's a base look. Let's execute our technique. Let's get better at what we do. So there was a lot of that stuff, just making sure we can get back to executing as well as we possibly can. And then next week, now it's full time focusing on what our opponent does and all those sorts of things. And when you have that extra time to prepare, and you can spend more time focusing on yourself, because in season you kind of run out of time sometimes. You don't get enough time to really focus on the little things that we're doing, because there's so much to learn about the opponent. But when you have some time like that, it's really good. It's kind of a reset for our technique and our scheme and the things that we want to do ourselves. So it was good.
That's Jordon Dowrey, Thundering Herd, focusing on themselves, getting themselves ready, reset for the 4-game push. Hopefully that'll end in a East Division crown and a berth in the championship game. So, Artis Johnson, didn't get a chance to talk about him yesterday. So we caught up with him during player interviews, and the first thing I asked him was how the off week go. Here's his response as he talks to the media yesterday.
The off week's great. It's a chance for us to get our legs back, get our bumps and bruises healed, and it's a great opportunity for us to, prepare for Southern Miss too. So get a step ahead. So it's always good for that.
Nice to get that extra week, especially against a team like Southern Miss.
Yes, sir.
So what's prep been like for you since you've got the 2 weeks? I know a lot of it's probably just more working on yourself than really getting Southern Miss down, because you can get that done pretty much in a week, right?
Right. Just focusing on ourselves individually, doing the things that we can to help out this team as far as your responsibility, your job on the field, whatever that is. Working on little techniques, fundamentals, doing the little things right. And as we continue to do that, it's going to help us collectively as a team to, get better overall. And ultimately, that's our main goal. So,
what has been the biggest success that you all have seen this year as far as the turnover deal? I mean, you all are forcing them in bunches, and I know early in the season that sort of got buried because offense was turning it over a little bit too. But especially the last couple of weeks, that's been magnified.
I feel like us as a unit, offense and defense, we, played collectively. Just being there for each other, helping each other out, and picking each other up. When times get rough. In the past, we kind of fought, had our little disputes, as far as offense, defense. But it's been more about us as a team fighting through whatever it is that adversity and making each other better. So I feel like we've done a great job doing that, and that's allowed us to have success as a team.
You look and you all are coming, I think, +6 the last 2 weeks in turnovers. You're looking at a Southern Miss team that essentially lost a game on Saturday because they couldn't solve the turnover bug. Does that make you lick your chops a little bit and sort of get y'all ready for this weekend?
Yeah. And overall, it's about us going out there, being prepared, being locked in, and making sure that we focus on the task at hand. And that's another big thing for us to have great practices and just go in there locked in and focus on the things that we need to do to get us better. And it's gonna be a pretty good game for us. So
sort of a matchup that you look forward to. I know that college football, there's so much talk about offenses these days. It's like you got 2 top 25 defenses sort of slugging it out this Saturday.
Yeah. Two good teams going against each other is always good, and we just got to keep battling, keep fighting, and keep getting turnovers and just playing hard and playing fast and being physical, and everything else will take care of itself.
We're talking so much about the defenses. This game's going to be like 50-47, something like that. I'm not going to go that far, but it feels like it's setting up to be a really tough defensive battle. Somebody might break away and go completely bonkers and score 2 or 3 touchdowns. I mean, we're talking about a really good Southern Miss team, though. And Marshall's been very good as of late as well on the defense. I mean, you've got a Marshall team that's not going to give up much on the ground. As far as rushing yards are concerned, 105.7. That's it. That's second in Conference USA. And the Golden Eagles are really hard to pass on. You're not going to pass on them. 167.1 yards per game. That's second in the league. So defensively, if Marshall's going to be successful, they're going to have to find a way to get some yardage in the air, but they're going to have to focus on that ground attack to open up the pass, I would think. Just basic. And Southern Miss is probably going to throw. But we've seen, as of late, that's been a little bit more difficult to do that on Marshall. So that's what's coming up. We'll preview more of this matchup tomorrow and the rest of the week as the Thundering Herd getting sent to take on Southern Miss. There are a lot of good matchups in Conference USA. You got Western Kentucky and Middle Tennessee. 100 Miles of Hate. 68th meeting. It's a Friday night game. 100 Miles of Hate. And of the current teams in Conference USA, the configuration, this is the most played rivalry in the league. For the last 6 have gone into overtime. And 6 of the last 7, one possession. That's it. That's what decided these things. So you've got that. You've got Marshall, Southern Miss, which I think is a really good matchup. You've got UTEP and Rice. Okay, I'm not feeling that one. Shula Bowl. You feeling the Shula Bowl? FAU getting in the Lane Train Express, making the drive, hitting the rail however the Lane Train travels. 40 miles, taking on FIU. Panthers, this is their best start in Conference USA as a member of Conference USA. Bowl eligible, second straight season. That's huge. But I don't think any of that matters. This is the Shula Bowl, FAU, FIU. Yeah, it's going to be pretty fun. And then you got UAB. UAB is off to a 5-0 start in the league, and they're looking to match their school record for victories. They could get that at 8. Win over UTSA at Legion Field. UAB's won 10 straight games. How about UAB? Back from the dead and a 5-0 start in league play. And the rest of the schedule looks like this. You got Charlotte taking on Tennessee. Louisiana Tech's got Mississippi State taking on them. But I think you circle, where do you circle in this league? 100 Miles of Hate, you circle that just because it's Friday night. Doesn't matter the records. 1-7 Western Kentucky against 5-3 Middle. If you're a Marshall fan, you're rooting for Western. And if you are a Marshall fan as well, are you rooting for FAU or do you want FIU to take a loss before you see them? I would say if I'm Marshall, I don't know. I'm thinking FIU wins this away. I don't think Florida Atlantic's going to this year. They're 1-3 in conference. Not the start you thought they would have. They're a little different than where they were last year, aren't they? 3-5 overall, 1-3 in conference. FIU is 6-2, undefeated in league play right now at 4-0. It's pretty good, right? And again, UAB 7-1 right now. UAB 7-1, 5-0. I like UAB. I'm really glad those guys are doing well. I mean, they could be your Conference USA champion. Think about it. UAB coming back from the dead, winning the Conference USA championship. Don't crown them yet, though. Don't crown them yet. Still a lot of football to be played. That's going to do it for this edition of the program. For our producer, Gabriel Sellers, I'm Paul Swann. Thanks for listening. Don't forget, if you missed any part of the program, you can always catch us on the podcast, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn, Spotify. Yeah, that's right, Spotify. Catch us there. Where you get your podcast is where we're going to be. And if you don't get your podcast anywhere cool, well, sorry. Good night.
WRBC Huntington, W227BS Huntington, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. Huntington Sports Station.